Okay, go ahead.
Okay, just a few words. So, okay. So good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to all of you, wherever you come from. Thank you so much for being here. Today's session is led by Mauricio Mejía, and we are very excited to welcome him. Thank you for accepting our invitation. This session is also very special because we are celebrating the 40th talk in our Engage with Ideas series. Since 2020, we have had 49 speakers from 33 universities in 16 countries, and nearly 200 people have taken part. It has been an incredible journey, and we are grateful for how this community has grown in these years. Everything starts back in 2019 when Liv Merete Nielsen from Oslo Met and Erik Bohemia from SWAD now gathered a group of academics who wanted to think critically about sustainable and socially responsible approaches to design and design education, from early childhood all the way to doctoral studies and professional work. That is how the Design Literacy International Network was born. And since then, we have co-edited special issues for Forms Academics and Revista Chilena de Diseño, organized seminars and symposia, and contributed to conferences like Learn by Design 2021 and DRS 2022. None of this would have been possible without strong commitment, affection, and hard work. We have also had support from our institutions, Universidad del Desarrollo, Oslo Metropolitan University, and the Shandong University of Arts and Design in China. Thanks to all the people involved. And now let's move on to today's talk. Design ability, expertise, and mindset, how professionals and lay people engage in designing. With Mauricio Mejía, who is a professor of design at Arizona State University. His work focuses on how we design change and how strategic design can help us deal with complex situations. He also looks at how people in fields like health, sustainability, business, and education use design mindsets in their work. Mauricio, thank you so much for being here today, and the screen is yours.
Thank you so much, Ursula. It's really good to be here. Thanks for the invitation. I really appreciate. I am honored to be here. Thank you, Eric and Liv, also for the support on preparing the presentation. Anyway, yes, I will try to make this short because I think it's fun to go to have some conversation at the end. So let's start by moving forward here with the article. And one of the suggestions from Eric and Liv and Ursula was to maybe tell a little bit of the story of the article. And actually has a fun story, I think. And it was everything started because I met Roger Malina. Roger is a professor in UT Dallas. And we met in a conference and we started talking about transdisciplinarity. He's an astrophysicist teaching art and science in Dallas. And we started talking about the connections between design, transdisciplinarity, art, science, all of these different concepts. And we wrote 3 papers actually for a conference. In this process, we started adding a number of people in the co-authorship. In one of them, we co-authored with 8 people, and the goal was, okay, let's recruit people from different disciplines and see how we can discuss this issue of transdisciplinarity. Anyway, at some point, after many conversations, and because Roger was talking about art and science, I just realized that what he was trying to do is what designers have done for a long time, trying to combine arts and sciences. And some of you know, I mean, the traditional design theory of thinking about design as a tier way of knowing, like Nigel Cross has said it, and many others. And so many papers on how design is different from arts, how design is different from sciences. And I told Roger, hey, design has a struggle in this space between the arts and the sciences, and you are trying to talk about that in a different way in this art science collaboration. I don't know if you are familiar with this field, but this is in different universities. You will find these art science programs. But anyway, at the same time, I was teaching a design epistemology course in back in Colombia in a doctoral program. I continued teaching that very similar class here in Arizona State when I moved in 2018. Uh, and I realized I need to write an article that kind of captures all of this work from the conferences, from the discussions with people in the papers, and yeah, just to wrap up the work and make a more meaningful contribution. Uh, Anyway, we also aim to recruit a few people. We invited doctoral students, and Kendon and Yumon were my mentees at the moment, and Alex was Roger's mentee. And Dana is a professor of education working with design thinking at the moment. Anyway, we assembled this team and we wrote this article. And I'm going to talk about it in a moment. Okay, so what we did in the article was to was to do an extensive little review on what are the abilities or skills of designers, and we found in the traditional theory some of these skills, like traditional design skills in this graphic, and we also identified some more emergent or recent design skills. And we identified these five components of how designers work. Uh, and the first one is design synthesis. Here we were combining many elements, many concepts of design, but we just concluded that what designers really do at the core is synthesis. And this is a combination between sense making and proposal making skills. You might have seen some of these graphics like the design squiggle or I kind of reject this idea that the design process is a sequence of steps. So I prefer these graphics where you have like a messy process that goes on in time, and that's how it really happens because every design project is different. Some concepts related to this are design abduction, design research in practice, framing, reframing. So basically, when you go from intention, which is at the left of the graphic, to the formal proposal at the end, you go through these iterations and process of dealing with ambiguity and uncertainty in the process. The second one is design modeling, and something maybe I didn't explain very clearly is that we had a discussion on whether we call these skills or abilities or competencies, and Dana was the professor of education in the outer group, and she said, let's talk about them as components because we are really talking about categories that are clustering some of these skills or abilities. And in modeling, I mean, this is also very well known in the design theory. Designers are really good at making things concrete. And we do this in a process of going from low to high fidelity. Not always, and AI is changing some of these things, we could just talk about that for a whole talk, or more than an hour probably. But anyway, just what you see on top, yeah, are some of these skills or abilities that designers have, like exploring possibilities, or if you go all the way to the top, is like persuading stakeholders with these models. Some of the related concepts are prototyping, sketching, visualization, and more, performing or experience prototypes. The third one here, when we come here to design speculation, I think we have significant literature on this, but what I observe here is that this is still emergent, even though designers work on the future. They sometimes are not really mastering speculating in longer term futures. And we argue in the article that this is a really important component to make a difference as designers. But anyway, what you see here in the graphic is a kind of an abstraction of the futures con. I didn't create a con here, but in the original graphic, you have these nested cons. And in the center, you will have the probable futures, which are the most likely to happen, then to plausible, possible, and the preposterous futures. I always have trouble pronouncing that one. Or an easy way to think about that, maybe in unusual word, it would be like impossible futures. And I kind of overlap this with horizons, which is kind of from shorter to longer term in the future. So I am using this as a canvas to explain design speculation. And 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 to do that, I actually like to start talking about anticipation, which is what futurists typically do. Very important. There are many futures practices from typical scenario planning, which I think is very much anticipation. But we also have like transformative futures, which are kind of very overlapping with design practices. But anyway, in general, when people say that they are engaging in futures methods, they are typically anticipating the future to try to create a resilient strategy, to be prepared for those different scenarios, or trying to understand trends to make strategic decisions better in the present. And what I argue is that what good designers do, what are the abilities of good designers, is that they are good at speculation. They look a little bit farther in the future, uh, and not just go to what is probable or plausible, but also even consider the impossible to be more innovative. So again, I consider this component very important for really good designers, but it's not a mainstream ability in design expertise. Uh, the fourth one, and they are five again. The fourth one is design facilitation, and this was one that we call emergent, or more recent design component. But you see, something I have been doing recently is trying to understand what is going on in practice, in professional practice. And this is actually really up to date. Like, many designers are trying to develop facilitation skill, or are being asked to be facilitators. To explain this one, I kind of created here three types of those possibilities. One is as a service, mainly when you work with clients. You are asked to do a session with people in different functions in the company, or as a freelance work even. The second one is collaboration with experts mainly. And this could be, if you are I don't know, a product designer, you might have to work with engineers or marketing in the organization, and collaborate with them, and you will have to facilitate those collaborations. And the last one is like the most typical in academia, I would say. Many people is talking about participatory design, or co-design with communities. Uh, and I think the goal here, we might agree as a general pattern, is that we are trying to make these communities or these people autonomous, getting the power of design to uh, uh, with autonomy or independence. And these are some of the skills related to that, from persuasion, modeling, sense making. You will see here in this graphic that depending on what you are doing, facilitation as a service or as a support for a community in participatory design, you will use different skills. Like, for example, mediating is something you might do in participatory design or working with other functions, but if it's facilitation as a service, probably you are just there to support another group. Um, and the last one is even more emergent and maybe emergent in the literature, but again, I think this is becoming more important in professional practice. I think, and this is a side note, I think in design research, in academia, I think we have failed or we are failing a little bit at understanding what is really going on in professional practice. We are very disjoint from professional practice in many of the papers as a peer reviewer and as attending to conferences. There are so many things that are really not connected to professional practice. Anyway, what is going on in implementation is that once something is approved, there is a lot of work. And again, this happens actually a lot in professional practice because designers are working in these units in the design function, and they are responsible and accountable for these products, and they just have to go on and produce, do design systems, deal with organizational routines, and start working in change management. They have to monitor how the design product is doing. I mean, not just this. My field, I would say, is like digital product design, but I also can see this in different design disciplines, from architecture to service design to graphic design. And the last one is here commitment on top, which is okay, if you really are accountable for your product, you have to commit in the long term to adjust it and make sure that there is a good distribution of benefits and harms, or avoiding the harms better. Anyway, let's see how I am doing here in time. So all of what I explained so far was more a review of design expertise. So my talk is about design abilities, expertise, and mindset. So abilities or skills and the components that I just presented are based on researching the expertise of professional designers. And you see this, of course, if you compare these three groups of people, like professional designers, other professionals, and other people, of course, professional designers will have a lot more of this expertise. But what I argue, or what we argue in the article, is that other people and other professionals can have design mindset to try to implement some of these abilities or components to practice better whatever they are doing, from policy making to trying to work in transdisciplinary collaboration in a research project, but it also could be a community project or really anything. Um, and so that design mindset, and I use here toddlers or kindergarteners, if you will, to make the case. I mean, if you imagine, I mean, I have a couple of kids, but if you don't have a kids, maybe you have little brothers, sisters, or nieces, nephews, I don't know. When you see these little kids, I would say they are not professional designers for sure. They cannot design a building or design a digital product that is very complex or a service, but they are really good at using design abilities. So thinking about them, like synthesis, trying to combine sense making with proposal making, modeling, making things concrete, facilitating, speculating things that might be impossible. So toddlers are really good at this design mindset. And professional designers are too. But what happens is that, and why the others are not? I think what happens is that in our society, in K-12 education, in college education that is not design, we are valuing things that are the opposite to the design components. So these other people, these other professionals lose the design mindset. So in the article, we made a case. We need to recover this design mindset in transdisciplinary collaboration to do it better. And and just to make another way to see this is I just outline it again here the five components with some keywords that you might remember what they are. And I wanted to put some other skills that maybe are the opposite or different or alternative to those five from design. So if you think about design synthesis, the opposite is like being more analytical, problem solve. So this idea of problem solve is like you have a defined problem at the beginning and you solve it. I think designers, even though we have adopted some of this wording in design schools and in this design profession, I think we shouldn't talk about problem solving, but proposal making, which is the concept I have been using. And because problem solving is very analytical. In design modeling, the opposite is being more abstract, working with words and numbers. And you think again about K-12 education and college education, non-design, non-arts, is a lot about literacy, numeracy, and developing these skills. Um, Design speculation, the opposite is anticipation. We are in many spaces of professional practice. Everything is about, okay, what are the scenarios? How we can anticipate the future? And I think we have to imagine the future. I think that's more powerful. Design facilitation is what I have in the left. In the right is more about power and dictating. So I see a parallel here in leadership. A leadership style is very top-down. In design leadership should be more about negotiating, partnering, and leading as a service. And the last one is uh, implementation is more about monitoring and committing as opposed to trying to control and externalize. And this is very somehow connected with sustainability, right? Like externalities, like you are not committing really, but you are trying to see how you externalize any issues that might emerge in the future. A good design implementation should be about monitoring and committing to adjust if there are problems. Uh, and I have this is just an addition you see on top of this slide, just as a wrap up. I would say what you see in the right has an algorithmic advantage. So in the age of AI and software and technology as a primary value of society, I think that's actually, I see this as a big bubble because as we have focused so much the skills of people on these analytical and numerical skills, those are more likely to be replaced if they are even be replaced. I am skeptical, by the way. But if there is any risk, those skills in the right are more vulnerable. But good design abilities should give us a human advantage. So anyway, whether you are a design expert or you are other professional or other people, adopting a design mindset, I think is really good, not just for collaborating, but also to have better autonomy, independence in society. Anyway, I think I went quite fast through all of this, but anyway, I was trying to make sure there is enough time for maybe conversation. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you so much, Mauricio. There was yeah, it's many things you've covered, many grounds. And let's go with the question. I mean, my first question is about if you can go maybe to the slide with
Okay.
the process. And maybe if you would not mind just to maybe describe some of those, what those the circles, what the different things, what they mean.
Oh, yes. So let me go. I guess you are talking about synthesis. Is that right?
Yeah, that's it. That's the one there. Yeah.
Yes, yes, yes.
It
Actually,
looks
I
like
mean,
there
all
are
of this.
two axes, yeah, at the top and at the bottom, and it's somehow they relate the time and the
Yeah.
two axes somehow they relate, yeah.
Yes, all of these graphics actually have a lot of nuance. I give a lot of thought on for trying to make sure that every element has some meaning or there is a connection. And sometimes there is not enough time to explain everything. But here, what I was trying to do with the thickness, for example, of the line. Oh, first, what you see on top is more generative. What you see here in the bottom is more sense making, or what professionals call design research, or trying to understand or gather insights, or trying to, uh, yes, understand what is the situation, the design situation. What you see on top is, yes, again, more generative. So it's trying to propose what does not yet exist. And in the center, so I try to put like this. I mean, we all work on time. We cannot escape the time. Right? We start a project and then we make a formal proposal. And through this process, we frame and reframe. Sometimes, if the design project is more simple, it's just reframing because maybe we get the brief and then we just have a chance to reframe. But if you are a more strategic designer, you get to frame the design situation and the purpose. The thickness of the lines mean how intense these activities are. So at the beginning is more intense, this sense-making work, and you have to use sense-making skills more. At the end, as you progress in the project, you have to be more or spend more time with more intensity, use your proposal making skills to refine and prototype, polish, and so on. And you also see the how high these semicircles are, and they are higher at the beginning because or in the generative work, you kind of look more into the future. You kind of should be more speculative. And in sense making, they are also higher because you have to dig deeper in the situation, maybe trying to see different things with depth or as much as possible. And then as everything progresses again, these circles are shorter because you are progressing towards making a formal proposal. I don't know if you see any graphic element that you are curious.
That's yeah. Thank you so much for sharing those thoughts with us. Jakob, would you like to come in and ask your question, please?
Yeah. So I have been doing some research on design mindset, and I was just one of the things we struggled with was to make it designer focused because the skills are somewhat human skills, and how do you then narrow it down to be actual design skills or design mindset compared to all other kinds of skills because they are all overlapping in some degrees.
That's a great question. And Jacob, good to see you in image at least. We have had some conversations on social media quite a
Ah,
bit recently. So good to meet you. And for me, I think, I mean, we argue about this design mindset, and I think the toddler example is very intentional because I think there are not the skills that are exclusive of designers, of professional designers. These are really human abilities. And what makes a difference for a professional designer is that they develop expertise in this group of abilities in a particular way that no other humans will have as experts, as professional designers can. So I think that that's my viewpoint. I don't know if somebody can say this skill or ability or competency is unique of designers. I wouldn't agree with that.
thank you for that answer.
You're welcome.
All right. Melis, would you like to come to ask your question, please?
Yeah, thank you. But I think Catalina raised her hand before me, so maybe.
That's okay, Melis. You are very
Yeah?
kind. Yeah, but
Okay.
please go ahead. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, first of all, thank you so much for this presentation. It was really inspiring. I'm personally more interested in the facilitator role of designers, and I have a question about that because in one of your slides, you mentioned some skills, and I saw that persuading was also among the skills facilitators need to possess. Yes, I think that one. Yeah. Yeah. So I agree with the other skills, but when it comes to persuasion, it made me think because if if designers steer the conversation in a way they just would like to do, then can we still call it facilitation? So how do we, or where do we draw the line? This was the question that I wanted to ask. Also in terms of ethics. So if we are facilitating a co-design session, let's say, as a designer, only to persuade people that our ideas are good, is it really design facilitation? So what is your thoughts?
Yeah. Thank you, Marlies, and good to meet you too. We have a couple of communication exchanges too, so good to
Nice to meet you
meet
too.
you. And I think I wrote a paper on this and another article on reflecting on what type of activities should designers keep control and what activities maybe would give some agency to collaborators. And I can see in the I would say European, maybe somebody will contest this, but in some European trends of especially in the north, in Scandinavia, of course, the idea of participatory design and co-design is more going towards the bottom here in this diagram. But if you are in the US, I would argue that what you understand as facilitation goes more towards the top, or middle and top. It all depends also in the cultural context where you are. I mean, in my opinion, yeah, it depends on your ideology, design ideology, right? Uh, uh, well, I am very interested in what is actually going on in the industry. And what is going on in the design industry in the US? Probably in the Europe will be different again because of this cultural context and the politics of different places. But in the US, what is really happening is that designers, when they work for, I don't know, Google, Nike, Visa, whatever big company or middle-sized company, I just mentioned the famous one, I guess. What is really happening is that facilitation is something more transactional. I mean, it's something that if you are a senior designer or a design manager, you are asked to facilitate. But it's not because you want to give voice to collaborators, it's because companies are asking designers to do this to make progress in innovation activities or product development or service development. It's really about okay how we can. I am writing a paper now on this, and one of the elements of analysis is job postings. And what you see in job postings is that they are expecting designers that are able to persuade, that create concepts, storytell ideas, what they speculate, conceptualize, how they can persuade, make sense, negotiate maybe a little bit, but it's mostly about selling off the ideas that they have and promoting the design function in the organization. So I see participatory design as something beautiful, but I see it as very romantic, to be honest.
I understand. But do you also see an ethical tension here? Like when they, or maybe I can ask this in another way. Do they call these sessions participatory design sessions when they try to persuade others that their
No,
ideas are great.
no. I mean, if
Okay.
you see again, if you're looking for a job in the US
Mm.
and your main expertise is participatory design, there is no job posting mentioning that at all. I mean, maybe they would say co-design, but they talk about collaboration, partnering with other functions, working with marketing and engineering to advance initiatives. Storytelling is like a big word. It is like, okay, how you can use your design skill to storytell. And you might say, oh, but you are designing for others. And let me tell you, that's what design is. So if you are talking about design expertise, I mean, I love ethics. Don't get me wrong, and I try to instill ethical and responsible practice in my students. But this is what the reality is. I mean, the designers are just trying to uh, create a value proposition where they work and anyway, yes, it's very transactional. And going back to my, I just remember I was trying to make so many points. But what is really happening when you are designing or design expertise in 100 years ago, if we consider more than 100 years ago in the Industrial Revolution, was the separation of who designs from who produces and who uses. So design itself is an act of control. So I know that we have been talking about the colonization and all of those things, but if we are really serious about the colonization and participatory design, is basically we are advocating for the end of design, because design expertise is about designing for others. Uh, anyway, still, I think designers have a huge ethical responsibility to practice well because they have this power or agency to decide for others. And in other conversation, you will have to think who is really making those decisions. Because if you get a brief, who really the designer is might not be the industrial or service designer. It might be the VP of marketing or the CEO of a company. Anyway, many things to talk, but
Yeah.
yeah, participatory design is, I think, is very romantic. But on the other hand, I think ethical practice is key in design.
Mhm. Mhm.
Great
Yep.
questions, Melis, and
Thank
yeah, good interaction also. It's this is what we're looking for, to have a nice conversation. So, Catalina, you had your question. Would you like to come in, Catalina, please?
Yes, thank you for the talk. I was follow you like, yeah, with saying your post in LinkedIn. I have like two questions. First is how you related this like with this what is the meaning for you of strategic design and how you relate this and how you can explain about this complex world we are living now. And the other, if you do you think is facilitation, you can learn facilitation like as a practice? Because I just finished a master degree in strategic design in complexity, and one of my teammates of my cohort make her thesis in that, like because she was a communication, she works in communication, and her work was, we need as designers training this, and her position was uh, is like a new ability we can train more than persuade persons. It's more like how you can create meaningful conversations and group of to make better decisions and better designs. Yeah.
Thank you, Catalina. Good to meet you too. I think those are big questions. So the first one is on strategic design. Uh, I think you mentioned that maybe you are familiar with some of my recent work. I'm not sure, but yes, I have been talking a lot about the strategic design, and that might mean different things in different places. So in design management in the 90s, it was about how design managers were able to, or not, to demonstrate the value of design and be provide demonstrate this strategic value that design had in organizations. Also, at the same time, there was a connection with sustainability and product service systems. The Politecnico de Milano and like Mancini and others, Meroni, we're talking about this idea that designers have to be more strategic so they can actually influence the sustainability of the products and product service systems. And more recently, there are a bunch of different things, but all related to how designers can actually have more influence in what they do, whether it is sustainability or more influence in business organizations and so on. I think for me, strategic design is just that. I don't think it's a professional practice. It's just an approach. I mean, you can be an architect, an industrial designer, a graphic designer, and you can have a strategic design approach. And what that means is that you are aware and try to influence broader systems in which you are working. So you are designing a poster as a graphic designer, or a building as an architect. How do you understand social, technical, economic, political complexities to be able to design with more influence? Strategic designers ask questions. I mean, if you are working in organizations, you should have the ability to question what your design manager or your VP of marketing is asking you to do. Sometimes if you are just executing a brief, you are not a strategic designer. Anyway, we can talk hours on that too. And on facilitation, I think facilitation skills. I know, actually, I just this year, a doctoral student of mine graduated with a few studies, but the last study that she made was interviewing design facilitators. So we find this in the US. So these people that do this full time, like they look for clients and they facilitate. I mean, some of them call these design thinking workshops or co-design, design facilitation. Sometimes no design at all, like creative facilitation. Maybe some of these are designers, some of them are not. But it depends of, I mean, again, if you remember the diagram, is your design facilitation a skill that you want to develop, something that you do as a service, or is something like more participatory design that you're trying to do for community empowerment or community action? So, I mean, I would say it's just so many flavors of that. So, yes, you can have a full-time job on that, but if you want to do more participatory design, like probably you are better off working for the government. And even in the government, there are the power and agencies not in the community 100%. So elected officials have a lot more power than community members. So anyway, many flavors.
Thank you, Mauricio. We have a last two questions. One is from Francesco, and then it's from Dan. Francesco, come in, please.
Thanks so much, Eric. Thanks so much to everybody. Gracias, Mauricio. My question is this. First of all, I absolutely understand what you present is clear, also for your clarity, but allow me to make you a question like educator, not like observing industries. And the question is this. It's really clear that design discipline is doing. But if we start from this hypothesis, we also need to allow that design can be not doing. That doesn't mean not produce, means stop the production. In this context, based on your experience and your visionary thinking, do you think that in the future, we need to move from a different elite perspective that we need to select a designer able to do and designer able to not doing? I don't know if you understand my question, and thanks so much.
No. Francesco, good to see you, and yes, it's always good to see you. And yes, I love that question. And let me share again this graphic. I mean, I use my graphics to explain everything, but I think what you are talking here is about this level of implementation, what I call commitment skills to do adjustments. And of course, this graphic, there is so much you can put in a graphic, but in this little thing here that is adjustments, and I consider many options. So it could be redesigning for sure, which is what we tend to do, redesign, like uh, uh, doing another top-down iteration, if you will, but it could be maintaining something, not changing again something, but it could be maintaining, it could be discarding what you design, but it could be undesigning. And there is a really good paper from Cameron Tonkin Wise on this, like how some designers might decide to not design something or to undesign something. So anyway, I would say yes, on design is very important. We don't teach it much. We should teach it more. Like when do you or when no action is the best course of action. Like maybe maintaining what is there is the best. But we are always talking about innovation, proposing. It's like there is no value we don't change something. And sometimes change is not the desirable future.
Yeah, thanks so much. I understand is you touched the point, and maybe sorry if I take 1 second. If you talk about adjustment in etymology, is adding. Even if I understand your point, maybe it's better to remove. This idea of selecting something and remove from the process. But when you do this and when you open to this, you enter in conflict with the industries.
Yeah, good point. Yeah, I will think about that. Maybe I need a better word for that because I always want to pick one word to try to synthesize everything in that word.
Thanks so much. Thanks so much for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you, Francesco. And Dan, would you like, can you come ask your question, please, Dan?
Yeah, thank you, folks. Wonderful talk, Mauricio. I'll just kind of voice something I've been thinking about out loud, and you sort of touched on this in part of your presentation anyhow. And it's this notion of, for design at the highest levels, or designers at the highest levels, thinking about their role and the language connected to their role. And like you noted somewhere in your presentation, I think we've appended the word management to the word design for many years. And now it seems maybe to be shifting away from that, thinking like the Design Management Institute in particular. So like I'll give you like 4 options to maybe give us some thoughts on. And it would be sort of between management, facilitation, leadership, and communication. Like, which of those for 21st century design leaders do we place our chips on the metaphorical table?
Yes, no, that's a good question. I have been following and actually became no member, but there is an Slack of this emerging a field one that maybe you are aware of called Design Operations.
Hmm.
I don't know if you have heard it, but in the US it's becoming very popular, Design Ops or Design Operations, and they have a Slack group talking about that. I am not saying that Design Operation is the best one, but I would say every concept would carry a different meaning. I would advocate, I mean, it depends on what you are doing. I mean, if you are managing resources, design resources in an organization, I think it's a design management activity. You are a design manager. So some organization call this director of design, head of design, or I mean, different words. Uh, Design operations is mostly, I think, is below design managers, and is mostly somebody that is there to support like the logistics of the work. Design leadership, I think, is something that all designers do, from junior designers to VPs or CDOs,
Mhm.
if you will. Because I mean, design leadership, I mean, anybody can have leadership, and leadership for me means service to others. So even if you are a junior designer, you can have design leadership to be proactive, to give input to others, to make proposals that are more speculative. I don't know, but it's about how you can serve your other people better. I think that's the big confusion. I mean, I guess there are different theories of leadership, but the best theory or approach to leadership is when you see it as a service to others. I mean, a good leader, whatever is a design leader or I don't know, a design education leader, is someone that actually works for the other team members, not somebody that is top down, just using the authority to do what they want. and communication facilitation are the two others. I think those are just specific skills or activities. So I would stick with design management. And I know, I mean, in design, everybody try. I mean, we like in different groups, everybody's trying to come up with a new concept. Like like product design now, not UX design so much. It's just the same thing.
Yeah, that's a wonderful answer. And I don't know, based on what you said, maybe I'll offer this out to this group. I would be interested if we took something like Cross's notion of designerly ways of knowing and thinking about designerly ways of leading and unpacking that a little bit more.
Oh, I like that question. And actually, there is a leadership academy here in ASU, Arizona State, and I was invited to give a talk about to these leaders. I mean, these are just department directors or I don't know, associate deans and staff too. And my talk was about how you can use a design mindset in leadership. But it was basically in a nutshell that like I was telling them that everybody's trying to problem solve in leadership, and I said you have to proposal make in leadership. But it was very similar to this idea of the design mindset that how you can apply it to leadership.
Thank you so much. We have more questions, I think, and but we ran out of time. Ursula, would you like to take us off, please?
Okay. Well, thank you very much, Mauricio, and all of you for joining today. I very much like how you, Mauricio, have visualized the concept and the relationship. Each of your graphics can open a good conversation, both about the content and the process you follow to draw them. And maybe a future talk could be about visualizing design concepts and processes and related approaches and also biases. I think could be a good topic to focus. So, well, this is the last one session of the year, our 40 talk, the last one of this year, and we are working now in organizing the 2026 talks. So all suggestions are welcome. And well, we have enjoyed a very interesting presentation and a very inspiring conversation too. So we wish you a very nice end of the year. And I hope we can see again in 2026 in our next cycle. Okay.
Thank you very much. And everybody, either have a good morning where you are, or good night, or good afternoon. And we'll see you in March in 2026.
Thank you, everyone.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Goodbye.